Well, welcome everyone. Then and now, Rosenwald Schools in the past and future of North Carolina towns. My name is Kofi Boone. I teach landscape architecture at NC State University. I'm happy to be joined by some distinguished people with me who knows a lot more about Rosenwald Schools than I do. But with regards to me, I moved from Michigan to North Carolina and live in Durham. I've lived in Durham the whole time I've been here, and this is Restored Rosenwald School in my hometown, the Russell School. So this in part was the inspiration, in addition to hearing through the Uplift program, the many communities that were interested in how to interpret and preserve and extend the stories of Rosenwald schools in their own communities across the state. For people who are not familiar with Uplift NC, the goal is to support tourism through community-driven efforts in rural North Carolina. Uplift works regionally across county borders to support local tourism leaders and practitioners in realizing their vision for tourism in their community, including natural, recreational, cultural, agricultural, culinary, built, and other tourism. So the stories that you will hear today regarding Rosenwald Schools fit right into that particular mission. And for people who really want to continue to be a part of the Uplift family, we're getting ready in November to have a Rural Tourism Summit in Raleigh, where we'll talk about some of the accomplishments this year and over the past 3 years of the program. And it's a chance to get to know the players and the communities and the various projects that have been accomplished over that period of time. For today, for the Rosenwald School webinar, there are a few things that we want to make sure you leave with. First is learning the significance of these schools. So for a lot of us, we still don't know as much as we should about the legacies of the schools and the relationship between Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald, which led to the fund. To gain awareness of cases of how they've been revitalized, and we're lucky to have some great panelists today who are actively engaged in revitalizing those sites and telling those stories. Engaging with stakeholders, other folks who may have these resources in their own communities and access information. And we'll close this webinar with some tools that we'll share after the end of the webinar for people who might be interested in examining Rosenwald schools in their own backyards. And just to get through our distinguished group of panelists today, we're joined by Dr. Florian Bell, who's an historian and community leader who has many, many accolades, including being a Wolfpack alumni, which is important to me as someone who teaches NC State, but spearheaded the Lincoln Heights Community Development Coalition, the Lincoln Heights Community Center, the Ella Baker Educational Project, a historical marker, and the John Armstrong School History Markers. So many, many experiences that have tied to that. Andrea Irby is with Weldon in Action and has been instrumental in the development of the Ralph J. Bunch Memorial Park, and you'll see that later as an example of how people have interpreted the sites where Rosenwald schools have occurred. And later we'll be joined by Earl Imes, who's an historic preservationist and a curator at the NC Museum of History, who will also help us to tell that story. Alice Irby, unfortunately under the weather, we wish her well and in the speedy recovery. For people who are unfamiliar with Rosenwald schools, this is just a quick summary describing just some key dates and moments, and you'll get much more detail later on in the panel with regards to North Carolina. Julius Rosenwald, who was president of the Sears and Roebuck Company, befriended Booker T. Washington, who founded the Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama. Booker T. Washington invited Julius Rosenwald to join Tuskegee Institute's board of directors. They traveled across the South together, and this is the Jim Crow era, the early 20th century, and saw the huge disparity between school facilities for Black folks, African Americans, and white folks, and wanted to do something about it. And that's what led to the fund. After Washington's death, Rosenwald established what's now known as the Julius Rosenwald Fund, which provided matching funds for creating state-of-the-art schools across the South for African Americans and Black folks. At its height, 1 in 3 Black students in the South went to Rosenwald schools. So this was a pervasive program across the South with $350,000 in those days used to build those schools. Over 600,000 students have attended these schools across the South. So the legacy is very broad and bold. As someone who teaches landscape architecture, I'm interested in them because they were designed to be state-of-the-art facilities to deal with inequitable disparities between communities and their facilities, which included site planning, which included access to light and air, which included good sanitation, which included all the things that we talk about now with regards to sustainability. They were talking about literally 100 years ago, and that pattern was being replicated all across the South. If you include everything that was tied to Rosenwald Schools, the number of structures is closer to 8,000 number, but there were around 6,000 schools built across the South. And you can see the dark areas in all these counties from Texas all the way up to Virginia where those occurred. And you can see a lot of dark areas in North Carolina because, as it turns out, North Carolina had the most Rosenwald schools of any southern state. This map comes to us from the NC Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. The X's that you see on the map are unfortunately Rosenwald schools that are gone. But the blue are those that are on the National Register, and there are a number of state recognized ones as well. So of the many that were in the state, these are the only ones on the register. So this introduces a very interesting opportunity for other communities across the state who may have Rosenwald schools, Rosenwald infrastructure, and are interested in reinvesting in them in different ways to support current community needs. We had a chance to look around at examples across the state. We'll do a deeper dive into Weldon. But this is in Warren County. The Rosenwald School in Warren County was redeveloped into a county training school that gives $40,000 in scholarships to local folks, has connections to Vance Granville Community College and senior facilities and medical facilities. And so this is an example of how Rosenwald schools have been reimagined for today. Walnut Cove Colored School in Stokes County, North Carolina, received a $400,000 revitalization grant to help it move forward, including grants from Lowe's and other private entities and philanthropies to help with the roof and ceiling, and won a preservation award in 2000 and is in redevelopment to become a senior center. And although this one is not in North Carolina, it's close by in Cape Charles, Virginia. This one is significant because of the amount of investment that it received, over $1 million grant dealing with industrial revitalization and the Virginia Housing and Community Development Program. And this is a detail, but this is one of the Rosenwald schools that's masonry, brick construction. So significant in that way as well. And it's being used for a lot of different things: job training in classrooms, community kitchens, incubator space, meeting space, a lot of different things. So there is definitely a momentum in our region to reclaim these resources and come up with new ways to make them relevant today. But coming back to our main point, then and now, we wanted to take a moment to talk about some of the activities happening in our own backyard. And so I wanted to turn it over to Dr. Bell to talk us through the many things we need to know about Rosenwald schools, particularly in Halifax County.
Thank you, Dr. Boone. Greetings to each and everyone this beautiful afternoon. If you're able to see this first slide, it has to do with my hometown's first school for African Americans. And that school was organized in a private dwelling in a residential neighborhood, because schools at that time had not been built. I'd like to take us back to bring us up to speed following President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation of January 1, 1863, the North Carolina Constitution of 1868 to 1869 adopted free, separate public education for white and Black children from ages 6 to 21. Beforehand, it was illegal for enslaved Blacks to be educated, although denied but undeterred. Many of us became self-taught, meaning my generations heretofore. And during Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, the Freedmen's Bureau and our Black Baptist churches in particular in the northeastern part of the United States, specific to Halifax County and the like, played a crucial role in establishing and maintaining rural schools. That being said, in 1908, it wasn't until years later, 1908, as you can see there in the picture, that we acquired our first schools. And they did not give it a name as the Caucasian schools, such as Roanoke Rapids schools and the like, but they referred to our first school, as you can see indicated there. And from there, we may go to the next slide. 1908. Here is a 1920 class of that particular school. You may, and I have reason to believe that the professor there, the teacher there, he was from the state of South Carolina. You may proceed. Here we have the George Eastman Rosenwald School of 1920. That school still exists, but in a more modern state. It was George Eastman of Eastman Kodak Company who came to this area as a result of Mr. Julius Rosenwald to get involved with the building of our schools here in Halifax County for African American students. And we're looking at the remnants. You may go to the next slide, please. The remnants of the first and then the second Rosenwald School, okay? You may go, and that school was built 1923 to 1924. We went from that school until now. We're in the process. We have almost completed a new, wonderful, beautiful, modern Eastman School. It is located on Highway 48, about 25 miles north of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. You may proceed to the next slide. Thank you. Here we have the Allen Grove Rosenwald School. That school was built between 1921 to 1922. The builder was Carey Pittman. He constructed 33 of our Halifax County Rosenwald schools. And the principal of this particular school, I don't know if I have her photo here in one of these slides or not, but she was Leanna Bale Pittman, and she is my husband's great aunt. She was the mother of 18 children. She was the principal and the educator at this particular school for 46 years. That school was moved from the Allen Grove Baptist Church. As I just stated, our schools were based in close proximity to our community churches. That school was moved there in 1996 from the Allen Grove Baptist Church location to Highway 903. You may proceed. In the about 4 miles north of Halifax. And that is the interior of the Allen Grove School. And we still have those benches. And it is, as you see, it is here in this particular slide today. If you look very closely to the left side of the room, at the windows, you will see an exhibit. Fisk University allowed me to be privy to their Rosenwald School exhibit material and the like. And I was able to photograph each of those, frame them. And if you were to visit the school today, you would find the exhibit of our 46 schools. Mind you, Halifax County, we have, I'm not going to say we have 46 of those schools, especially school sites. Halifax County have at least 800 plus miles. So therefore, that lends to as to why we have such a high number. Warren County, they have 25 Rosenwald school sites, and they have repurposed, as Dr. Boone just showed to us, one of their schools and the like. And so what else do I have here? And to speak, okay, you may move to the next slide. There she is, Miss Leanna Bale Pittman, born 1880. She passed 1944 at the age of 97 years. You may move to the next slide. Thank you. Here we have the Springfield Rosenwald School. I have particular interest in this school because that school still exists. It is, and it has not been demolished. It is being used for farm equipment and the like. You may move to the next slide. It is in its present state. as I speak. You may see me standing at the bottom there. It is located next door to the Springfield Baptist Church in Littleton, North Carolina. And I have been trying to acquire means, along with the church pastor, Reverend Dr. O.D. Sykes, and the private owner, who is a nearby farmer of this property, to salvage it as much as possible, to reconstruct it as much as possible, and also to acquire funds, but I have been unsuccessful. The next slide, please. Here is my school, my Rosenwald School. I attended that school for 12 years, not ever knowing that it was a Rosenwald School. You see the dates there, built between 1923 and 1924 at the cost of $20,000. This school is the second school for African Americans in Roanoke Rapids. The 10 acres of land was donated by New York attorney John A. Challoner, who came to this area, and he helped to industrialize the town of Roanoke Rapids. With the 10 acres came the John A. Challoner School. It was a masonry school, as you can see. And they also had a teacher's cottage across the walkway there on the school site. You may go to the next slide. There is the marker of which I approached the Roanoke Rapids City Council, and then I was referred to the Roanoke Rapids School Board. And it was the Roanoke Rapids High School alumni who stepped up to the plate, and they acquired the sign. It was like almost $3,000 for the sign. And the gentleman in the blue shirt on the right of the photo is attorney John Armstrong Challoner's great nephew. I believe he's out of Massachusetts. Both he and his brother attended the event. That was the first time that they had ever been to Roanoke Rapids. You may go to the next slide. There they are. Great nephews from New York and Maine. Maine or Massachusetts. You may go to the next slide. Thank you. Here we have the Halifax County Training School, and I believe Alice wanted me to speak to that very briefly. That school, the first Halifax County Training School, the school in Weldon, the town of Weldon, was built 1923 to 1924, Rosenwald School. And then came, they renamed the school Ralph J. Bunch School. 1957, Principal Dr. Naaman M. McMillan was inspired to rename the Halifax County Training School to the Ralph J. Bunch School, in honor, of course, of Ralph J. Bunch, a United States diplomat and the first American recipient of the 1950 Nobel Peace Prize. That school, meaning the Ralph J. Bunch School, you can see a small portion of it in the middle of the photo at the bottom. It closed in 1970 to comply with the 1954 and the 1968 Supreme Court decisions, of course, that mandated the desegregation of schools. And this action, it resulted in the students of the Halifax County of the Ralph J. Bunch School attending the predominantly white Weldon High School on Washington Avenue in Weldon, which was established at that time. So I believe that basically concludes all that I have in regards to our schools, except I am in the process of seeking funds to bring about a Rosenwald school trail for tourists in the area. I would also like to see Rosenwald historical markers for each of our 45 remaining. I have one for John A. Challoner, but I would like to have historical markers for the other 45 Rosenwald school sites. And we do have at least one or two. I believe there's one other Rosenwald school still standing, which has been repurposed in infield. So that concludes my presentation and what I am currently engaged in trying to bring further attention to our Halifax County Rosenwald schools.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Bell. And I invite you all to have questions. We'll have question and answer at the end of the session, so you can follow up with Dr. Bell on any of that information. The idea of a Rosenwald School Trail and properly marking those sites is a wonderful opportunity. I'd like to turn it over to Andrea Irby, please, from Weldon in Action, to talk about the Ralph G. Bunch School that was just referenced.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm looking forward to this. I'm loving that I get to continue after Dr. Bell. As she mentioned, Ralph J. Bunch School was originally a Rosenwald school. It existed until it was torn down. There were multiple buildings. The building she showed, which I'll have a picture of in a minute, they were torn down once a new high school was built. Both the White High School and Ralph J. Bunch were torn down, the main buildings. And that's unfortunate because everybody misses their school. So I really applaud everyone who's trying to preserve these structures and repurpose them, because they do teach and tell a history. Go on to the next slide, if you would, please. I want to tell you a little bit about us, because some of you may not know about us. We are Weldon in Action. We began in July of 2021 in kind of an odd way. My mother was writing, she wrote a book about different stories of her life, and she grew up in Weldon, was born in Weldon, and about a third of the stories were about Weldon. And the mayor approached her about, well, we don't have a history of Weldon. Would you please consider writing the history of Weldon? So she thought about it, and then I at the same time was kind of hanging out on Facebook and noticing people who were reminiscing about Weldon, some complimenting, some, complaining. But basically we all came together and decided we would try to form a group. We started on the very first day with 12 people, current residents, former residents, the mayor, town administrator, a couple of local key economic people. But we wanted to make sure that this group came from the people. We wanted it to be about the people. We wanted to be grassroots. We wanted people to have a say in helping to bring back their town because they were passionate about it. We have no formal membership, which is kind of fun when you're trying to have volunteers. You're constantly chasing people. But we wanted people to feel comfortable in their various roles and what they did. We have a variety of different things that they can participate in. We have about 60 to 100 on our mailing list, depending on which mailing list you look at. We probably have 25 core volunteers that work really hard all the time, and maybe another 15 that help here or there. We just have 3 rules if you want to join us. You need to be positive, no negativity. Everybody has a voice. Doesn't mean you can't disagree, but we don't tolerate any negativity. You have to love Weldon, and you have to be willing to make a difference. Those are just the 3 rules. You play by the rules and we're all fine. We haven't had anybody not play by the rules, by the way. Everybody plays by the rules. And then we formed a nonprofit so that we could raise money to exist and to also raise money for the projects that we wanted to do. You can go to the next slide. And this is our mission. Through projects and events, we will encourage community engagement, assist in economic development, and create accessible public gathering places to honor our rich history and inspire the future. Weldon has a deep history in this particular community and the schools, but the railroads, the river, there's just a lot of history there. And there's so many good experiences that people of all races remember, and we want to bring that back. So we try to be sort of a boots on the ground. We don't try to interfere or take over. We try to work alongside and in conjunction with our town officials and other organizations, anyone that wants to partner. We just want to move forward. Okay, next slide. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. We are currently working on creating a park at the site of the Ralph J. Bunch School. There were one source said 6 buildings, but we believe 5 buildings. The main building and another building are gone. You'll see in a minute, we're losing buildings. But this idea came about of Emily Smith III. She lives across from the school, or where the school was. She's lived there all of her life. And she's a board member, and she was looking out of her window one day when we were on a Zoom. And she just said, I'd really like to get a marker there. I'd like people to know the history. And over time, the town has dumped yard waste in that area, all sorts of things. It's been neglected. And she just said, didn't we matter? At which point all of us had tears in our eyes. And this project was born, and she wanted a marker, but we learned, unlike during the time of the Sarah Keys markers, that there's really not a lot of funding for markers. But there is funding for parks and community spaces and spaces that teach history and maybe eventually buildings. So we looked for funding and for ways to turn this into a park. We formed a team. We formed a group of volunteers. Dr. Bell was on that team. We took the idea to, whoopsie, there we go.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay.
That looks like a good presentation. I'll defer.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So we basically, again, we believe in things coming from the ground up. We believe in getting collective opinion and ideas. So this was floated around the board. Then we took it to a Weldon in Action meeting. And then we surveyed the classes of Ralph J. Bunch. We tried to get anybody's opinion that we could. And this property is owned by the school board. And so we basically took a chance and went to the school board when they were dealing with lots of issues at the time. They really didn't need us, but we presented the idea. And in particular, Mike Bacchus, I think he's from the class of 66, basically said, this is hallowed ground. And this is important. This is important history. And this is what we want to do. We want to build a park on this site. And for the first time, and any time that anybody can remember, that school board voted unanimously for us to proceed. They said, come back in the fall with a plan, with ideas, with money, whatever, and we'll look at it again. And so that's what we did. The property's been sitting for 50 years, but we're about to make a change. You can go to the next slide. As Dr. Bell showed you, this is the original building. It no longer exists. I think at the time, once they got the new Weldon High School built, they thought it was important to tear down both schools, the Ralph J. Bunch School and the White High School, so that there would be unity. But I think, as I said before, everybody misses their schools. And again, we wanted to really try to develop this park to ensure that current and future generations will appreciate the history and the importance of the African-American educational institutions and the leaders who made a difference in the lives of these people. That's a history that will be lost if we don't do anything. Next slide. These are 2 of the 3 remaining buildings, and now I have some sad news, and the building on the left is not going to make it. There's a building off to the left that's kind of covered in greenery. That was the gymnasium. The building with the white roof, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Bell, I think that was a small classroom.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one of our lovely tornadoes that came through earlier this year blew the roof off of it. And recently, Miss Emily Threet went over to with her cousin to try to see if we could clean it up before we do our ribbon cutting in November, and learned that much more of the structure was damaged, and she doesn't believe it can be saved. So the only building that has any integrity right now is the one with the gray roof. The town of Weldon is currently using it to store some of their landscaping materials. Revitalization of these buildings was something we could not take on. Initially, we're developing the property in front of it as the park. Renovation of these buildings was supposed to be in phase 3. We have 3 phases to the development of the park, and hoping that they could become a little history museum that teaches the history of the school, as well as the history of Weldon, because Weldon began in this area. It began along First Street. But now I think we'll probably have to move the buildings into phase 2. Just make sure we can save the last one. And I was speaking to Emily to see if we could possibly find historical drawings of the other building, or if we can capture it in some way so we can build a replica. So any way we can do something with the buildings would be great. Next slide. That was the little marker that Emily put up, noting the history of the site and the area, and you can kind of see the buildings in the background and the long grassy field. We also lost that sign in the tornado. It just went flying. So you always have challenges along the way, but you just keep on going. And as I mentioned before, we started fundraising and informing the community. This is one of our first efforts at taking out our site drawings. This was at the Weldon homecoming. I believe it was 2023. It was the first homecoming of the high school since COVID. And it was the last one before the current high school was torn down. It's being rebuilt. And everybody was there. So we got a lot of feedback. We got to share a lot of ideas. It was a wonderful time. Go ahead to the next one. And here you can kind of see the schematic, and just to explain it, what you see between the two yellow lines, the two straight yellow lines, that's the park. That's phase 1. And we'll see it in a minute. The framework is there, but there's lots of plantings. There's an area for a maypole. There will be markers and benches. It's designed to be, a place of reflection, a place to learn about history. The markers, all of the paths and everything are accessible. They're bricks and stone and regular sidewalks, but they are all ADA compliant. We'll have planters, trees, benches, and display areas for future markers. We don't have markers yet. Dr. Bell's not going to let us get away without a marker. But they are to depict the early history of Weldon, especially to depict the history of the Rosenwald School and the Ralph J. Bunch School and its leaders, and also honor leaders of the town who made a difference in the lives of all of its citizens, not just some of its citizens, but all of its citizens. And in the little white area that you see, the two circles that are yellow, there's a white circle to the right. That's a berm. If you come by during our ribbon cutting, it's just a mound of dirt right now. There you go. But that's where there will be a memorial marker to Ralph J. Bunch. Next slide. This was our groundbreaking. This was May 24th. We did it on the weekend when a lot of the high schools came home for a reunion, most predominantly the Ralph J. Bunch schools alumni. So we all got together. We had different members of the community speak. We shared our plans and ideas. We made sure everybody had fun and refreshments, and then we played in the dirt. Go ahead, next slide, please. And here you see, we messed up the grass. We started digging. This is this first sidewalks going in. And I want to explain how we did some of the funding. I need to give a little plug to Resourceful Communities because I know they're on this webinar. They have been really supportive of us in trying to bring the community together and doing things in this community. And it's because of them and their friendship with us that they have taught us about other grants that were available that we would have never considered. But based on their recommendation, we were recommended to look at a Canon grant. And we thought that's way out of our league. We've learned at conferences that nobody funds a nonprofit that's under 5 years old. And we were 3 at the time, and now we're 4. But we invited Canon to come down. We had them see the site. We had them meet people. We had them meet commissioners and school board people. And they went home believing in us. So we put forth a grant, and we got $40,000 to start building this park. The total project is roughly 125. Now that will probably go up since it will take time, and costs go up with materials and things like that. But the first phase was a little over 50,000. We had to raise a portion of that. So we've done that through donations. The class of 73 of Ralph J. Bunch has pledged 10,000. So we're raising money all the time and looking for free help all the time. But we're started. And so this has been what we've been doing this summer. Next slide. There's an aerial view. I have lots of other land shots of the different features, which are really pretty. If you see the brickwork, the brick sidewalk, you're looking at your sketch that you saw earlier. It's upside down. I mean, this is the way it looks. First Street is over where the car is. That crepe myrtle is going to get dedicated to Emily Threet. She doesn't know yet, but we have a wonderful marker in the works for her and for her idea in starting this. It's going to be called the Tree of Hope. And then the areas will go back, and my mother is a little better at this than I am, but the brown areas are tilled this weekend. We're going to be planting the park. We're going to try to make it look like something by November 1st. So the grant really paid for the construction. Fundraising is paying for plants. We'll have to fundraise to do the benches and the markers. We have one bench purchased, one marker purchased that we can show as examples, but we will have to continue adding that. But right now I'm going to be taking about 6 trees and 12 plants and a whole bunch of garden stuff to First Street this weekend. But that is the Ralph J. Bunch Park as you see it right now. Behind the sidewalk to the left, that was originally phase 2. And if you went back to the schematic, which you don't need to do, that would have been original phase 2 and the building's phase 3, but it'll probably become one big phase 2. And so that we don't own it. We lease this land, the portion between the sidewalks, we lease it from the school board. And we would have to get a new lease or an extended lease to do that part, but we'll cross that bridge whenever we're ready. We're just trying to do what we can manage first. Okay, next slide. This is what we're doing. So we're inviting you, if you want to get in the dirt and have some fun, you can come play with us this Saturday. We're doing 2 things that help Ralph J. Bunch this weekend. One is Plant the Park, 9 a.m. at First and Water Streets in Weldon, where you can bring supplies, bring your gloves, but we will probably have extra. We've got everything. If you want to donate something, we need hoses. We're working on hoses because we have no water, no electricity on this site at the current moment. We're going to be running hoses from Emily's house and paying her water bill to plant and to make sure the plants make it from the time of planting to Thanksgiving. And then the class of 73 is holding a Blue and Gold Festival down at River Falls Park beginning at 11 a.m. and going till 4. And it's all sorts of games and information booths, sports things, all sorts of things going on to raise money towards that class of 73 pledge. So we have a lot of people coming to help, but we can always use more because we want to make sure that people who help us plant the park also get a chance to go down to the festival. And then on November 1st, we're celebrating. Everybody's invited in the morning. It's a day you can spend all of the day, part of the day. You can mix and match however you want. It's a day to celebrate the history of Weldon. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're doing a documentary. This is one of our other projects, we're doing an oral history of Weldon. And that's what it was born out of the idea that my mother was asked by the mayor to write the history of Weldon, and she hasn't had time to do it since we've been working so hard. But she likes to tell history through the stories of people. She didn't want to write a history book. So this is the beginning of that. We're doing it as an oral history, which I think is great because more people will see it and read it. We want to add to it over time to get younger generations to keep telling the story of Weldon. But this is the first one. We interviewed 30 people, and it's called A Current of Time. It's done by Martin Brown out of Treehouse. I think it's Treehouse. I'm drawing a blank. I do that sometimes. But he's Treehouse Productions. Thank you, Olivia. I needed that. I'm still on publications this morning. But that's at 10. It's about a 50-minute film. We have an optional lunch at Halifax Community College. It's being shown at Halifax Community College. There's an optional lunch. You can RSVP by October 25th. It's $20 per person. You can also pay at the door, but we're trying to get a head count ahead of time. And then in the afternoon at 2 p.m., we will have the ribbon cutting for the Ralph J. Bunch Park. We have people speaking. We have people speaking at both, but we have several people speaking. in the afternoon. We have people who are there for some of the team members that we lost, most notably James Tank Williams, who was on this team and a key figure in the community, as well as Reverend Francis Kyle, who was also lost tragically a year ago. And they were key members of this team. So we will have people from their families. But we're going to celebrate. It's a family fun event. So you can warm up on blue and gold this weekend and come back on November 1st for music, refreshments, fun for the family. We've got games for the kids. It's just going to be a fun time celebrating that space. And that's all I have. So if y'all have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them.
That's great. Thanks, Andrea. We're going to shift gears and then we'll get into some question and answer regarding this work. There are still resources out there that are available for people who might be in the same boat trying to work through issues with Rosenwald Schools. You know, what do we have to do if we have one identified in our community? You know, what are some ways to get resources? What are some policies I need to be aware of? So in chat, I just put a story map and some links to the Historic Preservation Office compiled records about Rosenwald Schools, particularly in North Carolina. So there was a lot of momentum leading into about 10 years ago to start to document them across the state. It has stalled somewhat, but there's still the opportunity to pick it up and support the efforts like what we've seen from Andrea and from Dr. Bell today. You know, some things to think about if you find yourself in a position where, and you've heard this a few times, particularly from Dr. Bell, is, you know, figuring out who owns it, you know, whether or not there's permission allowed to begin taking a look at it. Organizing a group. We just heard from Dr. Bell and from Andrea the importance of setting up an organization that's going to carry it out. Conducting research and outreach. Dr. Bell is a great example of that. Assessing threats. So we've seen, you know, and heard stories about what happened recently with tornadoes or from extended neglect of these facilities or relocation. There are other things that may have impacted it. And thinking about what its potential reuse could be. In some cases, they stand and they can be reused. In some cases, they're not, but they can still be remembered and memorialized in public space. There are lots of actions. So once that momentum gets built, you know, consulting with the State Historic Preservation Office to begin, you know, conversations about what's required in order to get it recognized on tax credit programs, National Register, other elements, seeking historic designation if you can. That enables you to then pursue other preservation grants and other tax credit related entities and efforts. Standards, there are integrity standards, and that was referenced a few times, that in some cases, if they are heavily modified or if major modifications are occurring, that starts to run askew from the expectations of historic preservation offices. In that sense, if you're able, you know, getting the resources to get technical expertise, so hiring professionals to help with what's required to bring those buildings back to life, but within the constraints of codes. Plans and drawings, navigating credits, you know, and so, you know, one thing that is important is that once a project becomes listed on the National Register of Historic Places, it can use a 20% federal tax credit to offset some of the other development costs associated with that. Grant programs, which of course are in flux due to changes right now in the federal government, but there are still opportunities for matching grants and for other entities to support work. Building partnerships with local government and local entities. So we've heard great discussions about at the county scale and at the town scale, how those partnerships were developed and built. And, you know, a number of other resources that are available. So there was reference to Fisk University. They are very important to Rosenwald School research. They have a database that really compiles all of Rosenwald schools across the South. So a very important element, as in addition to the African American Heritage Commission in our state, National Trust for Historic Preservation, and other entities. So this set of factors will be shared along with everything in the webinar. These are also links to the story map that I mentioned before, which includes a live map that shows the same map I showed for the entire state, and links to historic resources. So those all exist and are available to folks. So I just wanted to run through those towards the end. I was hoping that Earl could join the second part of the call and talk through this together, but as a curator and a historian at the NC Museum of History, he's a great resource in this regard as well.
Dr. Boone,
Yes, ma'am.
before we proceed to the questions, if I may, I would be remiss if I failed to mention the Freedmen's Bureau. It was a United States government agency established in 1865 to assist newly freed, enslaved, and the destitute whites in the rural post-Civil War South. They provided food, housing, medical care, education, and of course, legal services, helped to find jobs. And of course, they were the first to establish schools for African Americans throughout the rural South. And I just wanted to give them credit. They were the first. They precede the Rosenwald effort.
Thank you for that. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, we welcome any questions or comments at this time. It's been great. It's been great to hear what's been happening in other areas. It's great to hear the reinforcement of the partnerships. It's good to show action. So things that are happening right now that people can pay attention to, and still the pressing needs. So again, the 42 Rosenwald schools in Halifax County that could become a way of navigating and helping people understand history is an incredible idea that is worth more conversation and hopefully more partnerships. But with that, we've reached the end of our hour. I want to thank Dr. Bell and Andrea Irby to joining today, and thanks to Uplift for providing the space for it. Hope that participants got some good information out of it. For people who are asking, yes, this is recorded and it'll be available on the Uplift NC website through the Knowledge Center, through the topical webinars, and all the materials that we share will be provided as well. So thank you very much, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boone.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.